Okay, guys, so we're going to go ahead and talk about materials and charcoal. So let's go ahead and get this started. So as we discussed yesterday, charcoal is a very basic material. Now, as you can see, I have little Bob here drawn out already. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust just a little bit, just so you can really see him. Move the light just a little. There we go. Now, let's talk about materials. Those of you that are at home may not have charcoal to work with, and that's okay. If you do, amazing, wonderful. You can work with your charcoal. You can learn the techniques directly. Now, all of these techniques are things that are going to work exactly the same, regardless of which material you have. The only difference is not necessarily what you do, but in what the end result is. So, in this particular case, we got different types of charcoal. Now, this type of charcoal is called willow charcoal. As you can tell, it is made of a stick. Hopefully, this can zoom in just a little bit. Let's try this one, where you can really see the knots in the wood. You can see them right here as it bends. Willow charcoal is literally just that. It's made of a stick. So you take the stick themselves are made by putting them into the oven and baking them for an extended period of time. But these have to be done under adult supervision. Now, compressed charcoal is basically the same charcoal, except it's been compressed and used with a type of oil to bind it together to make different textures of charcoal. So in this particular case, the 2B, 6B, and 4B. This is a measurement of how hard that charcoal is and how dark the line's going to be. The lower this is, the softer it is. That's why it says medium, soft, and extra soft. Now, again, those of you that are at home may not have these to work with, and that's okay. As I'm going to show you in a second, you can use lots of different materials using the same techniques. The most predominant one is your pencil. Now, you could use a mechanical pencil or pastels or even crayons for some of these techniques, but you do need to go ahead and cover some of these. Now, this is a regular eraser, and this is what's called a kneaded eraser. The regular eraser is a high polymer eraser, and I highly would recommend using one of those. But if you don't have them, use whatever you have. You don't have to have anything specific. So maybe you have one of these or an eraser like this. What your eraser is up to you. Now, if you did get a kit that has charcoal in it, most of the time you'll get something that looks like this. This is called a blending stump. The blending stump is used to blend out the different charcoals and to create different effects. Now, this is a kneaded eraser. This will also come with any kits. It is very stretchy, almost like a clay, and the reason for this is so that you can shape it into whatever shape it is that you're needing to pick up off of your paper. Now, I'm going to go ahead and show how these work very, very quickly using this little guy. You know Bob. He's here. I'm going to do this very quickly, nice and quietly, so you can really see how I do this. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to go ahead and do a little bit of cross hatching. Now, I'm going to use the pencil for some of him, the hard charcoal for some of him, and I'm going to be using the willow charcoal for others. And even the pastels, I'm going to be switching through all the different ones. I'm going to do them a little bit at a time, just so you can see that the technique works for all of these different materials. So the first technique itself is that of hatching. Hatching means to use different lines parallel to each other, right next to each other, and spacing them out for lighter colors, putting them more together for darker colors. If you want to put it around a sphere, let's say you have a circle, okay, you would create almost a crescent moon shape, just like so, to create this effect of a shadow, even if you don't actually have a shadow on the object. As long as it's on one side and follows the curve, wherever the curve may be. So let's say you have a shape like this. Stick to one side of your object, follow the curve, and it will always start to look more three-dimensional. The second one is cross-hatching. Cross-hatching is the same basic thing, only you do it in multiple directions. Further apart it gets, the lighter it gets. The closer together, the more you change directions, the darker it's going to get. So I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate this down here real quick. Again, you're going to want to follow curves, change directions, follow the shape, and that's going to help create a more distinctive and more detailed shadow and more interesting shadow to work with. Now, obviously, this clearly still works with pencil. Now, if you were to go ahead and use this with charcoal, this creates a completely different effect. So I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of hatching. That's what it looks like using the regular Willow. As you can see, this creates very wide lines, but it can also create some other effects that we'll go ahead and cover in a minute. The thinner one, the thinner the willow, the thinner the line. Now let's say I want to add some more details going different directions. That's where the pencil comes in handy, making certain areas extra dark, leaving others lighter. It gives you a little bit more control. That's the basic purpose of the pencil version, is just to give you a little more control. That doesn't mean there's any extra materials or anything like that. It just gives you a little more control. When you're trying to do the same thing with pencil, I'm going to go ahead and do the eye right here with pencil. And some of this body right here with pencil. And I'm even going to go ahead and create a shadow on the ground very quickly. So you can see that you can utilize the technique using whatever materials you have available. Even crayon. So the blending stump is there to go ahead and go in, blend out the colors, make them smoother. It's not there to erase any of your lines. It's just to make it smoother and to send color out. You could also use your finger. And let's say you have a little too much in an area and you want to get right precisely into that eye. I want to make it nice and bright. That's where the Kneaded Eraser comes in, to go in and pick up just a little bit of that color. And I can go in with a darker pencil, add parts back in to really keep building that color up. You are not going to stop after the first attempt. Keep adding and erasing and blending and adding and erasing and blending till you find a piece that you're happy with. Now, what I'm going to be wanting you to work with today, I want you to go ahead and try just an everyday object, and then I want you to go ahead and do an egg. Again, a very simple egg, so regardless of what material you use. We've done some of the eggs before, but I want you to go ahead and do an egg again. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a simple egg. Go ahead and do some shadows with the pencil just so you can get the general idea. Again, cross hatching. Practice with the cross hatching first, and you can use multiple materials. That's fine. That's called mixed media. You can 100% do that. So if you're doing shadows with a pencil, you just keep building it up just like this to make it darker. Now, if you want to do charcoal, you want to do the lighter one first, very gently, because it is very delicate. Just follow some curves with a little bit of hatching. And go ahead and just keep building and building your shading. This one's going to take a lot of practice and a lot of prep work. Once you finish with drawing your egg, go ahead and turn it in on Google Classroom.